Para começar as nossas atividades, eu convido ao palco Glenn Cezanne, acertei? Perfeito. Fundador da Time&Place Consulting, sediado em Bruxelas, e ele vai trazer a palestra Inovação como manifestação do soft power. Seja bem-vindo, Glenn. Palmas para o Glenn. Fique à vontade. Essa palestra vai ser em inglês, então quem precisar de apoio para poder acompanhar com mais conforto, pode pegar o equipamento ali fora, tá bem? E utilizar durante a palestra. A palavra está contigo.
Muito obrigado. Bom dia a todos. Desculpa, meu português não bom. So I'm going to continue in English, and I hope you will forgive me. I promised every single time that I spoke that I'll improve my Portuguese, but I failed every single time, probably because I always get so nervous when I speak in your beautiful language. Anyway, it's an absolute pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Glenn Cezanne. I'm founder and managing director of Time&Place Consulting, and we're based primarily in Brussels with satellite offices and colleagues also here in Rio and Sao Paulo, but also across Europe and Calcutta and India. We're constantly growing with, as mentioned, the main core in Brussels, but our ambition is to be present across the world because we don't only believe in providing client services, but really looking at the values that I think all of us will enjoy seeing and at least agreeing with today. Maybe a couple of points about the work that we do. We're primarily focused on government relations, association management, public funding, so looking for example, in Brussels for EU funding opportunities, but also across continental, so to say, highways. So the work that we do overall is very much related to communication, and we're constantly looking to expand to provide a way in our activities and our services to provide a holistic way of communicating. It doesn't matter if it's with education, think tank capacities, it doesn't matter as well as mention if it's about public funding, or even using digital communication means anything from video all the way to social media. So keep an eye out for us, and I hope you'll find our journey through with the company just as exciting as we find it, and obviously I hope you will enjoy this presentation as well. So before I talk too much about myself, as I am by nature a lobbyist and we love to talk, some of you know exactly what I mean. A big thank you to obviously Firjan, and congratulations on this beautiful home, what many of you call home. Of course also to Feop, who's always looked at looked at getting me involved in all the events over the last years. Of course, Brett being one of them, Pedro, you're somewhere hidden, and of course all the other colleagues, there he is. And it's a pity that one of our good friends, the one that I met on an airplane on the way to Kuwait, was the first one to get me involved with BIN, Marcin from the Silesian University of Technology. So when you see him, say a big hello to me, from me. So what am I going to talk about today? So innovation as a manifestation of soft power. I was very happy that Brett gave me the fixed title, so to say. Sorry, Brett. Give me the fixed title, so to say, because it allowed me to ask questions rather than provide answers. Because for me, the best way to look at innovation is the right way, or the best tool is to ask the right questions, not already have the answer. Otherwise, what are you going to build on? So for me, that's the main premise. But today, rather than only looking at innovation as a manifestation of soft power, I'd rather like to explore with you the connection between soft power and innovation, but also look in detail about what soft power actually implies. And I'd like to invite you on this journey of philosophical, a psychological, a business development, whatever you want to call it. It is all involved about how I am trying to transit from how we apply soft power to another point, another way to define it. I won't tell you exactly what it is yet. You'll see it as soon as the slides are up. So the best way and easiest way to start a presentation is to take somebody else's words and definitions. So the Oxford English Dictionary is describing soft power as deriving from economic and cultural influence rather than coercion or military strength. I mean, we've heard throughout the last presentations about anything from Coca-Cola to the Carnival to Flamengo, to all of these various items, Senna, and all the various examples that actually promote a level of soft power. And I would like to explore with you a little bit more about how we can look at it not only from the national perspective, but also from all the various actors, all the groupings, or even individuals. So I'll get to that in a second, so keep this one in mind. And of course, Joseph Nye is the first person that comes into mind. He was the one that popularized the term in the 1990s, and then again tried to do it in 2004, also with a lot of criticism. Now, the one point I'd like to highlight here is the question of country or countries. And here I'd like to put the question, what are the differences between nations, towns, companies, institutions, and persons when it comes to soft power? Is there really a difference? Of course, there is a difference between the way the groupings are constructed, the way decision-making processes are made to exert or decide on the soft power forms, the way that one, in essence, is also educated, and so on and so forth. But there is one significant similarity that I have an issue with overall, but I've applied to my company for a very, very long time, and that's the notion of gets others to do what it wants. That is a very, very, very potent concept, and it applies to all the various levels I've mentioned before. So I mentioned as well, I'm a lobbyist, right? So my point is I grew up thinking that every conversation, every sort of discourse, doesn't matter at what level, is about convincing the other person or the other group or sitting at the government level and mentioning about what I believe and trying to convince them that what I think or what I believe or what my client stands for is the truth. So that is something I turned into a theory. Some of you have already seen this from my previous presentations for BIN, not last year in Brazil, but it's okay. For those of you who have seen it, don't worry, it's not a repetition, but a building on it, so don't you worry about that. So the idea behind this theory that I've developed is about how to have the biggest level or biggest capacity, or how to develop an understanding of how to influence the decision-making processes. And the first premise is to have an impact playing field. And this impact playing field means that you have taken, for example, the target for a bow and arrow. The bigger it is, the easier it is to have an impact. So essentially, your aim is to make it as big as possible to have that impact. And there are various things that can have an immediate impact. And this is the first of two levels, keep that in mind. And these are the immediate elements. So time limitations, bad weather, sector scandals, overly large audience, rumors about your industry, geopolitical incidents. I mean, when the volcano erupted in Iceland, the discussions changed completely, and the halt of the meetings was very much evident across the European Union. Language limitations, again, my apologies. I will try my best to be as understandable as possible. And of course, things like distant meeting locations. So I'll give you an example in Brussels. If you have a panel with a member of the European Parliament, if you put it too far across the city because the agendas are usually full, you will not have that member of the European Parliament come and join you for that meeting. So these are very much impact mitigators that I've mentioned right now. So now let's have a look at impact builders. And again, I'm talking here a little bit more from the experience of my work in the Brussels side of things. So good food and drink. You know, if you have an Italian trattoria who is providing a high-level kind of food, people will talk about it for a while. There are certain events that are focused only on food and drink to get the conversation going. There's the ideal seating arrangement. So I'll give you an example. If you're set in a circle and you have a round table, an empty chair or people talking with each other will be a lot more visible than the setting you are in right now. So right now you can whisper into each other's ears and hope that I don't catch you. But if you are in a round table setting, you're much more visible, so the discourse and dynamics of the discussions are completely different, or can be completely different. Of course, contact channel familiar to target stakeholders. If you have a common connection, common friend, if you know Pedro, for example, then you know everyone. Sorry, Pedro, I'm picking on you again. So these are some of the examples. Of course, common interests. If you both like playing golf or tennis, that's another one. And entertainment. I don't need to go into too many details. You get the point. So there's a second level. As mentioned, the first one is very much about the immediate side. The other one is the more long-term approach. It's the context playing field. This is what you build up over the years, or things that, I mean, you don't necessarily have any sort of control over it, but have a longer term effect. So for example, if you have a reputation, that can damage you for a long time. If you have the right network, that can help you for a long time. If you apply the right technology, and we'll get a bit more into that, that can also help you. But the thing is, now the main point is, this context playing field and the interaction between the two levels means that the bigger the context playing field, the bigger your, so to say, target can be. It will only fit as much as the context playing field will only be as large as the context playing field will allow. There are also other usually uncontrollable elements as mentioned, so something where there's a production line for a certain product that you're not going to change, and of course other issues such as geopolitical crisis and natural disasters. Now, similar to the first level, there are things that will have an impact. Brexit had a very big impact on the agenda of the European Commission's ability to push for legislation, because there were a lot of stakeholders, and I'm sorry, Violetta, if I'm saying something wrong, you're very welcome to throw something at me. Brexit had a massive impact on agenda setting. It was more difficult for us to push for things on the agenda because Brexit took over a lot of the conversation. It had never really happened before. Actually, it kind of did between Denmark and Greenland, but that had a completely different dynamic. But it was completely new. There was a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty really feeds into your ability to progress in many ways. But at the same time, two-sided coin, it can really make the dynamics a lot more creative or innovative. Again, it depends on what side you're looking. Impacting policy, I think that's quite clear. When you're looking at the push for the green agenda at the European level, for example, it is pushing for traditional companies, especially in the energy sector, to rethink. Not necessarily the most effective and efficient way. That's a longer discussion to be had, but certainly to have a level of innovation, whether it's the right way or not, again, something else. Self-regulating standards. I always found this very fascinating, because when you are running an organization which has other organizations with competing interests, one big aim that you have is to look better than the other one. Not necessarily all of them care about that, but certainly that's a way to make sure that when there is the agenda setting at the policy level, you can place yourself, of course, with a certain caveat, at the front of the policy discussion, because you already have taken that extra step. You are pushing yourself to be innovative, creative, to take that extra step. Innovative agendas, funding, of course. I mean, at the European level, if you're looking at Horizon Europe, or the ability to get public funding, there needs to be, for a lot of things, at some point, an innovative agenda and innovative product. AI, at the moment, you see a lot of companies throwing out, we can do policy work, we can do business development work using AI. And I'm not talking about you putting a prompt into ChatGPT and asking them to write some content. No, it's actually about being able to calculate, predict behaviors, and it can get very, very interesting, and also in some cases, I would also say very dangerous. At the moment, we're relatively immature from what we're seeing. We have set up a working group within our company to discuss not only what it means for us, but what it can mean for our clients, and also trying to get involved at a more PR level to allow a societal understanding of what AI implies. Because at the moment, there's one thing that is for sure, a lot of misunderstanding about what it is. Innovative messaging channels. I mean, many of you will probably think that Facebook, Instagram, and so on are no longer innovative messaging channels, but here the question is how you use them. And of course, product with negative trend reputation can have the same effect. So I won't go too much into the details, but the innovation and creativity side is a key to successful outcome is recognizing, and I'll read it out, the plethora of factors that are influencing and could influence your impact on decision making, no matter if immediate or contextual, and seek to adapt these to provide you with the highest chances for effective impact. So what does that mean, in essence? Soft power is influence. Influence implies tools, and tools that are innovative, so soft power is innovation. I think much more important, we need to look at it also in the modern context, where we discuss about how the world is changing, again, where innovation or the changing innovations are a manifestation of hard power. I mean, we've seen that during the Cold War with the internet. We've seen it with nuclear energy. also already from the Second World War, just to be historically accurate. And the question that we see right now with international dynamics, maybe because they're just generally more visible that I raise this, is to what degree will soft power still be a power in the future? So innovation comes out of hard power. Innovation comes out of competition. Innovation also comes out of a personal ambition to be better and do better, and also to just do better for society or for one around. Again, you've heard many of these points, and I can only encourage you to listen to them, because at the end of the day, why don't we focus on the alternative? So what you've seen until now was a bit more of the old Glenn. This is more the new Glenn. And this is the journey I'd like to come and help me understand better. This is not only for me to understand, but it is for all of us. Why not soft power instead? I'm not saying that hard power is not human nature. In many ways, it will always remain it, I believe, unfortunately. Soft power, why not change it into empowering? So let's have a look at what it means more specifically. At the end of the day, when we look at this matrix, I don't think from the more immediate effects we will have that much of a difference or an impact, but I mean the larger effects will in essence. But that is not the things that we should focus on. I mean, these are the points that are still permissive only as much as the context permits it. And this is why for me today, this is my most important slide. It's not only a couple of examples. There are plenty more. There is what I've discussed with some of you today, the human nature of having this approach of connecting, creating larger organizations, and then there's the top-down effect, which affects everything at all the smaller levels. And there's been this nature of human nature to then violently, in most cases, violently change then to the bottom up. Why not encourage this trend of allowing top-down to permit for the bottom up? Question of power, question of control. It's not empowerment, is it? Sustainability-driven policy. I mean, I don't need to tell you much about that. Joint solutions in technology, I can tell you about one of our clients. It's Charin, and I can see that my colleague Tatiana, who's in the crowd, works with me in Charin and also Time&Place Consulting. Do you want to give a wave to the crowd? There she is. What we work on in Charin is getting all the main industry players together. We have everyone from Visa, Tesla, Volkswagen, BMW, Shell, NBW, you name it, you have it, so to say. There are about 320 members of all sizes. And what they do is to find common solutions rather than letting the necessity of certain competitive elements take over the discourse, and actually just push for common solutions in terms of the charging, so e-mobility systems. So the shape of the charger, the amount of metrology, the metrology part of it, and so on and so on. I can go on forever. The public key information, and so on and so forth. So what is very fascinating about this, and this is why I very much enjoy this client, is that there is a constructive approach to looking forward. And this is something that inspires me, and I'm very, very much brought in a client where it was also the other way around, and I encourage you always to do that with whoever you're working with, to learn from them. Value-based investments, I mean, I don't need to tell you much about that. It's about social responsible investment and financing, which I strongly, strongly encourage. One point about inspiration rather than only research. When we talked a lot about, or when, not we, but when I heard many of the panelists yesterday, specifically also the last one yesterday, talk about the connection, and Tatiana, Violetta, you were part of that, that panel, about the connection with oneself, but also with what is around. It's about opening one's eyes and being inspired to understand and to learn. What does that teach us about what is around? Why do we take things face value and only base our mathematical interpretation in that approach? Why not open your eyes and let things sink in, so to say. Inclusion. It's not only about giving equal social rights, but giving people a voice. Giving people more than democracy, but in the decision-making processes on an ongoing basis with the knowledge that various stakeholders bring in. Of course, I mean, I can say that as a lobbyist, it's a wonderful, great idea that the clients that I have are able to discuss with the governments exactly the knowledge that they have, but the principle is much more important. There shouldn't be fear behind including various stakeholders, but rather look in a very transparent way, of course, about the ways things move. And my favorite one I'm leaving to the end before I take too much time, empathy. I mean, it doesn't matter if you decide to stick to the first parts that I discussed or the second part I discussed. Empathy is of high value in one way or another because that shows care. And I think that's the one last point I want to make without sounding, as they would say in English, too cheesy. But really, that probably is the biggest asset that you can have when you are with somebody else. So on that note, thank you very much.